the apex of terror. The chamber was built for unity. It had never felt so suffocating. Tier upon tier of representatives filled the vast circular hall of the Galactic Concord. Beings of light, chitin, vapor, flesh, and metal, all gathered beneath the glow of a suspended star map that shimmered with 1,000 civilizations. Today, that map was shrinking. One system at a time, its lights are going dark. No debate echoed in the hall now. No diplomatic murmurs. No ceremonial greetings. Only silence. Because the Varkesh were coming. They had no empire in the traditional sense. No colonies. No trade routes. No treaties. They left nothing behind that required administration. Where they passed, civilizations either submitted or vanished. Entire histories ended not in war, but in moments. They did not conquer. They judged. A towering crystalline envoy from the Jarit collective broke the silence first, their voice vibrating through harmonic translation fields. We must enact surrender protocols. Murmurs followed, not of outrage, but weary agreement. This was not cowardice. It was survival. Every species in the Concord knew the stories. The Rel Dominion had once possessed fleets larger than the Concord itself. Their defense grid had spanned 3 star systems. The Varkesh arrived with a single war moon. 3 days later, the Dominion ceased to exist. Not occupied, not enslaved, erased. Another delegate rose, an aquatic being encased in a mobile life sphere. They do not respond to negotiation. A third added quietly, they do not recognize diplomacy. The hall dimmed slightly as a recording was projected above the central floor. A survivor's testimony. The being on display was skeletal now, its species barely recognizable after the trauma of atmospheric collapse. Its translators struggled to hold coherence. They asked us one question, it whispered. The chamber leaned in. Do you believe you deserve to survive? The recording faltered. We said yes. Static filled the air for a moment. They said, the survivor continued, voice cracking, prove it. The projection ended. No one spoke, because no one could. The Varkesh philosophy was brutally simple. Survival was the only measure of worth, and resistance was proof of weakness. For centuries, the Concord had endured by surrendering early, offering tribute, abandoning systems, withdrawing populations before the Varkesh arrived. It was not victory, but it was life. A ripple of movement stirred at the chamber's edge as a courier drone entered at speed, its urgency protocols overriding decorum. The presiding speaker turned. State your report. The drone hesitated, a rare glitch. Then, a Varkesh scouting fleet has been destroyed. Silence shattered. What? Repeat. Destroyed by whom? The drone's lights flickered as it processed the weight of its next words. By a newly contacted species from the Orion Fringe. The chamber erupted into overlapping frequencies. Impossible. Unthinkable. Madness. The speaker raised a limb for silence. Identify the species. The drone complied. Designation. Human. The star map shifted, highlighting a small, unremarkable yellow system. A deathworld. Gravity higher than galactic norm. Unstable tectonics. Predatory biosphere. Rapid evolutionary arms race. The data scrolled faster. Humans were new. Dangerously new. They had achieved faster-than-light capability less than 2 cycles ago. Their psychology reports were troubling, emotionally volatile, capable of extreme cooperation and extreme violence, inventive to the point of recklessness. Social bonds extending beyond kinship. Pack persistence hunters, a species that exhausted prey rather than overpowering it. They did not rely on strength. They relied on refusal to stop. A military analyst spoke, disbelief heavy in their tone. How? The drone displayed the encounter summary. The Varkesh scout fleet had issued standard dominance demands. The humans responded with inquiry. They asked questions. They attempted dialogue. When the Varkesh advanced regardless, the humans fought. Not efficiently, not cleanly, but relentlessly. Civilian vessels armed mid-engagement. Orbital infrastructure repurposed as weapons. Self-sacrificial collision tactics. Unorthodox swarm maneuvers. Improvised nuclear deployment at point-blank range. The scout fleet had been annihilated. At catastrophic human cost. The chamber fell still again. One delegate whispered, "They should have surrendered." Another replied softly, "They did not know how." Moments later, a new signal entered the chamber. Varkesh. Unmistakable. Their transmission was not language. It was declaration. "We have encountered a species that resists extinction." The temperature in the hall seemed to drop. They do not submit when survival probability dictates surrender. Pause. They expend themselves to inflict damage beyond strategic value. Another pause. They exhibit irrational persistence. The message ended with a classification. Trial species. The speaker's voice trembled. What does that mean? No one needed to answer. Trial species were not negotiated with. They were studied, tested, broken publicly. As examples, the Varkesh would come in force, not to conquer, but to prove a point. The final line of the transmission echoed through the chamber like a verdict. This species will demonstrate whether defiance has value. The star map shifted once more. The human system pulsed red. A lone delegate spoke what all were thinking. They will be erased. No one disagreed. Across the galaxy, civilizations had survived by yielding. Humanity had chosen another path. And now the apex predators of the stars were coming to teach them why that choice was always fatal. The first clash. The Varkesh did not rush to war. Predators did not hurry toward prey. They arrived in Seoul exactly 72 standard hours after declaring humanity a trial species. No armada of thousands. No overwhelming spectacle. Only 5 vessels, each one larger than a city. Each one designed with brutal simplicity. No aesthetic, no diplomacy structures, no broadcast arrays for negotiation. Only weapons. Humanity detected them at the edge of the system, emerging from the dark between stars like silent verdicts. Across Earth, alarms sounded, not of panic, but of preparation. The United Orbital Defense Network transmitted one message across every frequency. Unknown vessels entering system. Establishing contact. Humanity did not open with weapons. They opened with words. A transmission was sent. Clear, measured, translated through every known mathematical framework. This is the sole cooperative authority. You are entering sovereign territory. We request dialogue. The response came instantly. Not a speech, but as a gravitational pulse that rattled satellites and made oceans tremble. The translation followed seconds later. Survival is proven, not discussed. And then the Varkesh advanced. Their first strike did not target Earth. It targeted the orbital ring, humanity's greatest achievement in space. A beam of compressed stellar radiation lanced outward from one of the alien vessels. The ring shattered. Sections the size of continents broke apart in silence. The first human deaths of the war occurred without a single warning shot fired. Across the Concorde's observation posts hidden at the system's edge, alien envoys watched with grim familiarity. This was how it always began. Shock, overwhelming force, submission. But humanity did not surrender. Instead, hundreds of small vessels surged forward from behind the debris field. Freighters, mining craft, construction platforms. None designed for war. All armed anyway. The Concorde observers struggled to understand what they were seeing. Human ships did not form clean battle lines. They did not retreat to defensible positions. They swarmed, like insects, like predators, like something that had never learned the concept of strategic surrender. Missiles launched, not in coordinated salvos, but in chaotic waves. Some struck Varkesh shields and dissipated harmlessly. Others detonated prematurely. But some got through. One Varkesh vessel tilted slightly as an explosion rippled across its flank. A minor hit, tactically insignificant, but unprecedented. The Varkesh responded with precision. A second beam swept through the swarm. Dozens of human ships vanished. Still they advanced, not toward victory, toward contact. A human mining vessel accelerated directly at one of the alien warships, engines burning beyond safety limits. It did not attempt to evade. It did not attempt to survive. It detonated at point-blank range. The blast did not destroy the Varkesh ship, but its shield flickered. For the first time in recorded history, a Varkesh defense system had failed under direct assault. The observers in the Concorde's hidden stations fell silent. The humans were not fighting to win. They were fighting to hurt, and they did not stop. Orbital debris was weaponized mid-battle. Station fragments were hurled using improvised thrusters. Autonomous drones, originally designed for agriculture, were reprogrammed as kamikaze units. Every loss became material. Every failure became adaptation. The Varkesh had faced armies before. They had faced machines. They had faced desperation. But they had never faced persistence. Hours into the engagement, one of the 5 alien vessels took a sustained barrage from repurposed mass drivers anchored to the remains of the orbital ring. The drivers overheated, melted, exploded, but not before the final shot struck true. The Varkesh ship's propulsion core destabilized. It did not explode. It simply stopped, dead in space. Across the system, every human channel erupted in disbelief. The impossible had happened. One of the apex predators of the galaxy had been crippled. The remaining 4 Varkesh vessels reacted immediately. They shifted formation, adjusted tactics, escalated force. Human losses mounted catastrophically. Ships burned. Stations vented atmosphere. Entire defense grids fell silent. And still, human vessels advanced. Not in triumph, not in fury, but in refusal. Then came the final act. A damaged human command station, its structure barely intact, altered its trajectory. It broadcast a single message across all channels. We hold. Moments later, its reactor overloaded. The station drove itself into the immobilized Varkesh ship. The detonation lit the void. When the light faded, both were gone. Silence spread across the battlefield. For Varkesh ships remained. Human defenses were shattered. Earth lay exposed. And yet, the Varkesh did not advance further. For the first time in their recorded existence, they paused. Across their command network, one conclusion emerged. Victory probability remained certain, but cost had become measurable. In the Concorde observation posts, stunned delegates recorded the moment history fractured. The Varkesh had lost a warship, not to superior strength, not to advanced technology, but to a species that refused to stop fighting even when defeat was inevitable. The Varkesh transmission that followed was brief. Anomaly confirmed. And for the first time in galactic history, the Predators had encountered resistance that did not break. War of minds. The Varkesh did not retreat. Predators did not withdraw because of pain. They withdrew to understand it. The 4 remaining warships moved beyond the orbit of Mars and went still, silent, watchful, calculating. Across the galaxy, the Concorde waited for the next act of extermination. It did not come. Not immediately. Instead, the Varkesh changed tactics. They stopped attacking Earth and began attacking everything else. Human colonies were the first to feel it. Outposts on distant moons vanished without warning. Mining installations lost contact. Terraforming worlds went dark. The Varkesh struck fast, surgically, never staying long enough for defense, never offering battle. They were not trying to destroy humanity now. They were trying to break it. Psychological warfare. Fear through absence. Pressure through loss. For most species, this would have worked. It always had. Civilizations built on comfort and stability fractured when forced into prolonged uncertainty. The Concorde had survived for centuries by yielding to this exact strategy. But humanity did something unexpected. They did not collapse. They adapted. Within weeks, human communication networks reorganized into decentralized webs. No single system carried strategic command. No colony stood alone. Civilian vessels began traveling in escorted convoys. Long-range patrol groups formed. Not military fleets, but cooperative task forces made from whatever ships could fly. Farmers, engineers, traders, scientists. Everyone became part of the defense. More surprising still, humanity did not turn inward. They reached outward. Messages spread beyond their borders. Not demands, not pleas. Offers. shared defensive algorithms, evacuation corridors, engineering solutions for rapid infrastructure mobility. For the first time, the Concorde received aid from species under attack. At first, most refused. It was safer not to be involved. But the Varkesh did not discriminate. As human allies grew, so did Varkesh targets. Systems that had once believed themselves safe began to feel the same pressure. And humanity responded the only way it knew how. Together, joint task groups formed between species that had never spoken before. Human engineers retrofitted alien defense grids. Alien navigators improved human supply routes. What began as survival became cooperation. And something else began to spread. Not fear, resolve. The Varkesh watched. They observed how humanity reacted to loss. Colonies destroyed did not weaken their networks. They strengthened them. Each attack became a lesson. Each failure became strategy. Captured humans proved equally baffling. Interrogations yielded no strategic surrender points. No centralized command. No hierarchy that, if destroyed, would collapse resistance. One interrogation record circulated widely among Varkesh command. A human technician, taken from a destroyed colony, had been asked a simple question. Why do you continue resistance when extinction probability exceeds survival? The human's answer was translated with difficulty. Because we're still here. The interrogator pressed further. You cannot win. The human shrugged. A gesture the Varkesh struggled to interpret. We don't have to win today. Pause. We just have to not lose tomorrow. This logic, this refusal to accept finality, was alien to Varkesh doctrine. War was decided by strength. Survival was determined by superiority. Endurance had never been considered a weapon. Until now, months into the conflict, humanity launched a strike. Not on a Varkesh fleet, but on one of their command nodes. A relay structure positioned between systems, vital to coordination. The attack was unconventional. Human ships did not attempt to destroy it. Instead, they infiltrated it. Cyber warfare, signal disruption, and physical boarding teams worked in tandem. The node fell silent for 17 minutes. When it came back online, it broadcast a message. Not in human language, but in Varkesh code. Simple, undeniable. You are not inevitable. The message spread through Varkesh networks before it could be purged. For the first time in their history, a question emerged within their ranks. Not of strategy, but of certainty. If a species refused extinction, if it grew stronger under pressure, if it united others rather than collapsing, was dominance alone enough? Among the Varkesh command, one strategist began to review the data differently. Not as predator and prey, but as rivals. Across the galaxy, the Concorde began to realize something unprecedented. Humanity was not merely surviving the Varkesh. They were changing the war itself. The battlefield was no longer defined by destruction, but by belief. And for the first time, the most feared species in the galaxy began to experience something unfamiliar. Doubt, the rival. The final confrontation did not begin with an attack. It began with silence. For the first time since the war started, the Varkesh stopped hunting. Their warships gathered at the edge of a neutral system, one long abandoned after a stellar flare had stripped its inner worlds bare. It was a place of no value, which made it the perfect battlefield. Human scouts detected the concentration within hours. 4 warships had become 7. Reinforcements had arrived. Human command understood immediately. This was not another test. This was the conclusion. Across human networks, the alert spread. No panic followed, only movement. Every allied species that had joined humanity's defensive web now faced the same choice the Concorde once had. Submit or stand. This time, they did not stand alone. A coalition fleet assembled, not unified in design or doctrine, but in purpose. Human vessels formed the core. Around them gathered ships from species that had once survived by surrender. Now they arrived by choice, not to conquer, but to prevent extinction. When the fleets met in the dead system's outer orbit, no weapons fired. Not yet. The Varkesh opened with a broadcast, not directed at humanity alone, but at every one. Survival is determined here. Then their final weapon emerged. From the central warship, a structure unfolded, vast, geometric, pulsing with contained energy. Concord observers recognized it instantly. A planetary annihilator. A weapon designed not for battle, but for judgment. It did not matter that no living world existed in this system. The message was clear. This was what awaited resistance. Across the Coalition fleet, tension spread. Human command responded, not with threats, not with defiance, but with a single transmission. We will not allow this. The Varkesh answered in kind. Then stop it. And the battle began. Coalition ships surged forward. Varkesh weapons answered with devastating precision. Entire formations vanished in moments. Human tactics shifted instantly. They did not attempt to destroy the warships. They aimed for the annihilator. Small strike groups wove through enemy fire. Alien navigators calculated impossible trajectories. Human pilots executed them anyway. Losses mounted. Still, they advanced. Not toward victory, toward prevention. The annihilator powered up. A sphere of collapsing light began to form at its core. Time shortened. One strike group broke through. Boarding teams launched. Human, Rel, Jarrett, species that had once feared, even standing together, now fought side by side. Inside the weapon, resistance was immediate. Varkesh defenders engaged with brutal efficiency. Progress slowed, but did not stop. Outside, the battle raged. Coalition forces were outmatched. The Varkesh could still win. And yet, human reinforcements continued to arrive. Not warships, transports, supply craft, converted civilian hulls. Everything that could move joined the fight, not to destroy, but to delay. Inside the annihilator, a human engineer reached the core. Destruction was possible. Overload would erase the weapon, and much of the fleet surrounding it. Instead, the engineer initiated shutdown. Manual, slow, risky. A Varkesh commander observed the act through internal sensors. Confusion registered. The human could end the war here, with mutual destruction. Instead, they chose restraint. The shutdown succeeded. The annihilator fell silent. Outside, the battle stopped, not by command, but by realization. Humanity had won the moment they refused to become what they fought. A channel opened, not from humanity, from the Varkesh. The same strategist who had studied the war from a different lens now spoke. You had the opportunity to end us. Human command answered. We don't need you gone. Pause. Just not unstoppable. Silence followed. Across the galaxy, Concord observers watched history pivot. For the first time, the Varkesh did not issue a declaration. They asked a question. Why preserve an enemy? Humanity responded simply. Because tomorrow exists. The strategist processed the data. Strength was domination. That had always been truth. But endurance was something else. The Varkesh fleet withdrew. Not in defeat, not in surrender, in acknowledgement. The war ended without annihilation, without submission. Across the Concord, a realization spread. For centuries, the galaxy had feared the strongest species. Now, it respected the one that refused to become monstrous to survive. And somewhere beyond the silence of retreating warships, a new truth settled into the stars. The Varkesh had not been conquered. They had found something far more dangerous. A rival.